Hi, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Much awaited conversation with one of my uh, favorite speakers. More than speakers, I would say she's a very good articulator because she can make things very simple, even complicated things. She can make it very simple and ensure that it is relatable to us and we're able to connect to it. That's one of the most important things I value about her, and we have been trying to make a date for doing this, and after a very long time, like literally after months, we've got this opportunity to talk with her. I'm so happy to have her once again in this space. Just through her words, she's gonna make a revolution. I've been sensing that from the day one I've been hearing her. Like, I believe that revolution through words is gonna happen through her. And yes, she's none other than Sangeeta Parthasarathy. A lot of people know, and a lot of people will know today how amazing articulator she is. For me, she's an articulator. More than a speaker, more than an orator, more than a person who does her doula work and everything. For me, she's somebody who can articulate things for us and make it connectable to us. So yes, today we're going to talk about something sometimes it might be a little disturbing for us. If it is disturbing for you, hold on and don't try to force yourself to see this live. It's okay, you can come back and see, and otherwise we are all here to help you out, and we are all in this together to ensure this journey is healing and healthy for all of us. So on that note, let me just call her. Yeah, I'm just waiting. By the way, this live could be in English as well as Tamil, so it might be.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
Good,
It is
good.
really feeling. We've been talking about this to do like in 4 months, and finally, the day when you said no, that okay, let's do this, I was like, I told my husband was sitting next to me, and I told him, hey, call shit, cut it. We started laughing. He was like, அவர் வந்து ரஜினி சார் கிட்ட கால் ஷீட் கிடைச்சா கூட நீ இப்படி எல்லாம் சந்தோஷப்படுற மாதிரி தெரியல அப்படின்னு. I was like, ஏய் நிஜமாவேடா, நான் 4 மாசமா துரத்திட்டு இருக்கேன் அவங்கள, அவங்க வந்து பாவம் பயங்கர பிஸியா இருக்காங்க. Then he was like, he was trying to convince me, okay, it's okay, it has happened. Now enjoy the moment and ensure this life goes as per what you guys are thinking about it. Abdina. I was like, yeah, I need to do that. Karke. So yeah, it's for me. This topic has been there for a long time, and we have been thinking, but then both of us work in different kind of spaces, and we tend to prioritize that space. That is beautiful, and I also feel that universe calling, that it has to happen after mother wounds. I was also thinking that there is a reason why this is happening after mother wounds, and mother wounds part 2 will happen after this.
Yes. There is an order of things, I think.
Yeah, I think even that patriarchy feminism happened first before that. So I feel it was connected. Then before that, it
Yes,
was
so
that
that
good
was
girls and
emotional intimacy in marriage that the you and I
at,
did. That can be a precursor to patriarchy. You know, we built on some of those, and there's
yes,
overlap, right? So
yeah,
I really believe. I mean, all of what I do is quite organic and kind of. Give me one.
organic, yes, and
Yeah. So it
and
beautifully one leads to another kind of thing.
that's what I was
One
like.
minute. Let me 1 minute. 1 minute. Make sure it's plugged in. 1 second. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wanted to keep it in a space where we see your full face. Some what happens is your this thing gets cut off.
Yeah. That's what I'm figuring out. Give me a second.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just do this
So
on
yes, audience, you
my
can put your
phone.
questions if you want. We will try to answer them. And yes, I've got a few questions in the DM as well, so we will answer them as well.
Let me. Okay,
And
hold on. This.
no, you fix
No,
yourself. I'm
actually,
talking to the
I'm
audience
going
actually.
to. I'm going to log on through my phone. Okay, so that might be easier. Let me do that. I'm going to
Okay,
just log
sure.
out to log back in. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
you keep talking.
So, yeah, this is a topic that has been close to me, and there is a lot of times during my course and during my in my workshops, in my one-to-one consultations, a lot of us we don't know what does it trigger, what is a trauma, am I even having a trauma? I don't believe in it, as in I'm not able to understand whether I have a trauma or not. So, a lot of us have these questions because we don't get those kind of education in a phase when we had to give, and there is so much of trauma that our body remembers. So I thought, why not just understand the basics of what this trigger and trauma works, how things fall into place, and what is actually neurologically it is happening, and everything else that's connected to. Yeah, just coming back. Just wait for a second, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Yes, some Seri.
Yeah.
Um, on that note, we'll start out with the basic. I've got few questions, but then we'll start out with basic because this is like a lot of people actually three people DM'd me and asked trauma na ennaka, trigger na ennaka. So basic itself we actually don't know. It's a body level nadakudhu, but we don't know what is trigger, what is trauma, and எல்லாருக்கும் trauma இருக்குமா? எனக்கு ஏன் trauma இருக்குமா? So it's like, do I actually have trauma? I don't know whether I'm having trauma. Am I actually carrying it without my knowledge? So all these kinds of basic questions I've got. So maybe
Okay.
we can start out with it.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Hmm.
So, okay, is this going to be in English or Tamil or both?
Both. On
Both.
comfort.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. I'll try to keep it in English. Maybe more audience can understand. But if there is a little bits of Tamil in there, hang on. It's we'll come back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one. Um. Okay. So trauma is anything that was too fast, too soon, too late, too little, or too much for your nervous system. Okay, so அதுக்கு ஒரு a little okay. So okay, so let's say you I'll tell you about this. Okay. So human beings, okay, so animals க்கு trauma இருக்குமா? Human beings க்கு மட்டும் தான் trauma இருக்கா? Okay, so that's so what happens in the animal kingdom world, right, is okay, so let's say there is a tiger or a lion and there is a gazelle or a deer. Okay. The deer's grazing, doing its own thing. Okay, it hears a sound or something. Okay. The first thing it will do is it would orient, it will look for where it is, right? It's kind of sizing it up. Right? It's going to focus on it, sounding எந்தோ வருது, இது வந்து அங்க பாக்குது. Okay. Then first it might say, then the body triggers up a defensive response, right? So the deer is thinking, okay, I can fight this threat, right? So it's getting ready for fight. Then when the lion comes closer, it sizes it up and it thinks, okay, என்னால இது சண்டை போட்டு ஜெயிக்க முடியாது. So I'm going to run away, right? So it's going to run away from the lion. And say the lion comes close to the deer. The deer will actually kind of flop, collapse, and play dead. Okay, so the lion thinks that the deer is dead, leaves it, and goes. This is the freeze response. Okay, but all of these responses require a lot of nervous system energy in our body, mobilizing to defend, mobilizing to fight, mobilizing to run. Okay, and freeze is a very high energy response because you have all that unmobilized energy that has nowhere to go. Okay, so after the lion goes away and the threat is no longer present in the wild, what happens is this deer then will shake it off, will it'll move, it might even run to to spend that nervous energy and for the body to reorganize. Okay. Okay. So in the wild, animals don't have trauma because they have, but humans, we're socially conditioned not to do that, right? So over a period of time, nervous energy gets trapped in our body as unmetabolized energy. So that is what's trauma. So this is why humans can have trauma and animals in the wild don't.
Okay. So it's there in our body.
It can get, okay, so எல்லாருக்கும் trauma வருமா? The question is, am I carrying trauma in my body? It depends on so many other things. It's so many things. Okay, so okay, so this is purely from an animal perspective, right? So we don't live in the wild. There is no predatory threat to the body, but there are other kinds of threat that our body can face. For example, we're very social beings, right? So there's social engagement and attachment systems. So there is a lot of relational so when we're in the relational field, there could be things from there. So what kinds of trauma can be present potentially is, we can have in utero trauma. So something in utero that wanted to be complete and could not. We can have trauma through the process of being born. Early childhood attachment is a big part of what we carry. Okay, so what happens is these experiences get layered one on top of the other sometimes over a period of time. Okay, then we can have accident trauma. We can have medical procedures. If a tonsillitis பண்ணிக்கிறேன் இல்ல வந்து very common. Okay, procedures appendicitis இருக்கலாம், கீழ விழுந்து அடிபட்டுட்டேன், that is one, right? And there's a way that you help the body kind of resolve it. So there are many other things that can, so then there is, like I said, relational trauma, there is systemic trauma, patriarchy induced trauma, which is in the air. I think I've described it before, but it is this idea that unga veetla, even if there was safety in your house, the minute you stepped out, many of us who grew up in patriarchal societies have an automated defense response. Like we're ready, we're always on the lookout, we're hyper vigilant, we're defensive orienting, we're looking around, we can't relax, right? Yeah, and then there are other defensive things. So for example, so that would be an example of something that gets triggered, right? So there are various kinds of trauma, right? So there is shock trauma, and then there is relational, so single incident trauma. Then there are more chronic, the things that get layered on top of each other, developmental or childhood, things that you carry, right? So to answer your question, எல்லாருக்கும் trauma இருக்குமா? இருக்கலாம், இல்லாம இருக்கலாம். Thing is, in the trauma, what helps the body release trauma, and make meaning out of it and integrate that experience into our bodies is to slow down and process it after the event. But a lot of us don't do that, right? I'll give you this example. I was talking about this with somebody. 2 days ago, my daughter was cycling in roadla, and there was another girl who was kind of a bit distant, and it was like a slope, and then this girl kind of fell down, and she grazed her knee, and she was a little bit upset, crying. So the parent comes and says, okay, don't, and then she saw me kind of in the background immediately, and it's a very common response, right? The first thing that gets triggered is this embarrassment and shame about the child crying, and then it's nirthu alada, brave girl, good girl, all of that, right? Nothing will happen, all of that, right? So that whole process of it was sudden, it was unexpected, right? And then immediately it became a teachable moment. Idukku dhaan sonne inga ipdi pannakodadu appdi pannakodadu in front of him, without actually holding space for that child's nervous system to process this overwhelming event.
Yeah.
Which was sudden, which was unexpected, okay? Which I'm not, if 5 years ago that would have been me, right? So I'm not, this is not about judging anything, right? But now that we know better, we there's things that we can do.
Conscious about it.
This is an example. So ellarku trauma irukuma? Yes and no, okay? No, see, there are some kinds of trauma which can resolve itself in the body if the body has enough resources, right? So think about it as resources. என்னோட nervous system la, just as I have these triggers, right, that send me into this fight, flight or freeze mode, I also can have glimmers or hope or resources, right? A kind word, a supportive partner, a caring mother, a friend, whatever it is, right? That our own resources that can help. And this is a dynamic thing, right? So today, if I'm really well resourced, right? Today, if I'm really well resourced, I might, whatever happens, may not land as a trigger in my nervous system. But tomorrow, let's say I've had my என்னோட பக்கெட் எவ்வளவு ஃபுல்லா இருக்கு அப்படிங்கிறது தான், ரைட்? என்னோட பக்கெட்ல இவ்வளோ ஸ்பேஸ் இருந்ததுன்னா I can take 2 or 3 so-called triggers without really going into that fight or flight mode. But so it's a very dynamic thing, right? Yeah. Suppose I don't have my bucket is this low, I'm running low on patience today. Anything that my daughter says or does above and beyond will result in triggering me. Trigger na enna, external event that that puts you in this fight, flight, freeze, sometimes fawn, which we'll talk about a little bit later, mode. Okay? And it's okay. The thing is, it's not that you are in these modes. It's that resilience, right? How do you come back into this window of normal functioning? Okay? And that is determined by so many other things, like your body being okay. If I had a bad headache, for example, my reserves are running low anyway. You see that? And say I had a really good life or something, I don't know, I had a good day at work, then that gets replenished, right? So that this bucket is this big, right? And within that bucket, it can or cannot hold this, right? So these are normal everyday events. However, a majority of us also have proclivity to what is called complex trauma, complex PTSD, which usually has a chronic element to it, which means that it was long term. For example, patriarchy, growing up in systemic violence, growing up around a mentally abusive or mentally ill parent, growing up around mental illness of any sort, where there was persistent threat for longer periods of time. That can really mess with your nervous system, right? And many are carrying that kind of threat. So that is complex PTSD, complex trauma, which, I mean, so that's the difference, right? So there is on the spectrum, there are different kinds of trauma, right? So
I think I can show, like, எனக்கு வந்து like personally I had like a issue with comes to body image, especially color, which because my sister used to be very fair. So அது வந்து, even though my parents were never seen that she's that color, I'm that color, but the society around has consciously or subconsciously, it has been registered that she's better, she's prettier, and for a long time it was like a trauma until I went to a therapist and that healing happened. And then when I started looking at myself as an individual without any reference point, so it was always like she is the reference point there, even though this never happened within the four of us. But then you have your cousins or your aunt, uncles, or in my school, because we both studied in the same school, she used to be very pretty, so everybody used to be like, look at your sister, look at your sister, be like, she was the very pretty, good studying student with all those calm and quiet kind of a girl, and I used to be the exact opposite, not so good at studies, brat, and like extreme opposite. So the social comparison actually triggered a lot of trauma for till actually I was into relationship, and then I realized how much it actually impacted during my relationship also. So that's
Yeah,
when I started going to
in the air,
therapists.
right? And again, not to pick on one person, but it's a, there was a bunch of kids outside my house, and it was time to go in. It was Kartala. They go cycling in the morning with masks and whatever, right? And one of the parent was there, and she was saying that it's very hot outside, so you guys should stop cycling at around 8:30. If not, you'll become blackies and brownies. Your complexion. She actually used the word complexion to a bunch of 6-year-olds, right? Saying, and I was there. It was outside my house, right? So, you'll become blackies and brownies or something. So I vehemently detest this color crap. So there is none
Yeah.
of that in the house. And when her grandparents say something like that, I'm always really vocal and like come out all, like pouncing, saying, don't, no, why do you say that, right? And I hate it when people talk about complexion, whether it's mine or other people's. But it was there, and then I kind of said, "Hey, but brownies are really yummy to eat." And then she kind of looked at me, and I said that again, and I think she kind of got it. It went a certain
Yeah.
direction. Point is, even if you don't have it in the house, it's in the air, right? Like I said,
Yeah.
like patriarchy is in the air. This color crap is in the air. There is so much of this crap. It's in the air, right? So this
Yeah.
is persistent. It doesn't go away. We were two girls in the house, and we didn't have, maybe because of that, we were never told that we were anything less than or whatever. But I distinctly remember being in public transport. We were in a bus once, எங்கேயோ சென்னையில எங்கேயோ போய் மத்தியானமா, and there was a seat next to an older gentleman, and one of us went and sat there, and he said, you make conversation. என்ன நீயும் உங்க அக்காவும் தானா, உனக்கு வந்து அண்ணா இல்லையா தம்பி இல்லையா,
Yeah.
strangers on the road, your
Yeah.
pukari, your whatever, whoever it is,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? Like it, and age and education doesn't matter, right? People are still carrying this in this day
Yeah.
and age.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was there, all those years ago. So it's in the air, right? So if you grew up in uh, this kind of a culture as a woman, there is a fair chance that you're carrying trauma in your body.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, because I was also that kind of a person who would do all the plumbing job, the electrician job, and everything. And everybody used to tell my mom and dad that பையன் இல்லாத குறையை இவ தீத்துட்டா. So again, I am just filling the gap. I'm like, I am not, I am there. So I'm
Yeah.
not identified. So for a very long time, it was பையன் தான் ஏன் பண்ணுவா. So I used to be that energy where, not like I'm selective in picking my battles. I would fight for even that Pokariyama telling that, then I will fight with them. So அப்போ நம்மளுக்கு அவ்வளோ அந்த காலேஜ் படிக்கிற டைம்ல யாராவது வந்து அப்படி சொன்னா, we just bounce back and like feel that retaliated mode, right? So
Yes.
it used to be very for me for a long time, those things hit me hard.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
time.
it's significant, body image, for example, it's very deep rooted, right? So this would be an example of something that can set the scene for so many other things, because it's in the air, right?
Yeah.
It's in the air, so it's chronic, like it's over a period. It's not like I fell down and I got hurt, or I had a medical procedure, those kinds of so what happens is all of these things get layered one on top of the other, right? So the work we do in therapy is to unlayer it, decouple it. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we're talking about trauma, so I also want to like ask. So okay, maybe trauma is there inside me. So how do I feel that if I'm not? How do I know that if I'm having trauma?
Yeah.
இருக்கா?
Okay. Yeah. I'll give you a
So
few.
இப்போ எனக்கு இருக்குன்னா, I can go and access to a therapist or anybody. But எனக்கே தெரியல எனக்கு இருக்கா இல்லையான்ற ஒரு கேள்வி இருக்கு.
Yeah, yeah. Some pointers, okay. one of the telltale signs of trauma is if you live constantly in your head, if you live either in the past, ruminating things, wishing things were gone different, மைண்ட்ல அன்னைக்கு அவங்க கிட்ட என்னால இது சொல்ல முடியல பட் நான் வந்து என்னோட மைண்ட்ல இதை சொல்லிப்பேன், like how I would respond. So spending a lot of time in the past or extraordinary amount of time in the future, worrying, anxious about what's going to happen in the future, and having trouble staying in the present, like here and now, like I exist and this is happening in my periphery, in my world right now, so showing up, right? So that is a big, that's a telltale sign of trauma. um, the other ones are having vivid flashbacks, like, and when you have them, it's like you're feeling it in the body, in the here and now. So the body loses the ability to differentiate past from the present. So there are certain life experiences which we might be carrying so deeply in us that and it's a crude pattern matching system then. So anything that resembles triggers would actually trigger a full body experience of that past where that happened, because it's the body's way of keeping you safe, right? Idu pattern mari irukku apdi, but then your neocortex, your thinking brain goes offline. So all of this is in the feeling brain, right? So adu vandu brain stem, adu vandu crude pattern matching. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. Say you are driving, okay, and green lights irukku, உங்களுக்கு தான் right of way இருக்கு, நீங்க வந்து indicate பண்ணிட்டீங்க, யாரும் இல்லன்னு பார்த்துட்டு திரும்ப போறீங்க. So you're going to make a turn. Suddenly out of nowhere there is like a big red truck that comes and it almost hits you. What happens as to people as they're listening to this bodily? What happens in the body as you listen to this? Like, what happened for you as I said this, as you imagine this? Yeah, your eyes went like that, right? Yeah. Okay. So for some it's raised heartbeat, for some it's
stiffness, it happened in my body.
Yeah, right. Fear, exactly. Yeah, it's very scary, right? So we freeze, some of us freeze very quickly, some of us are like angry, like yavandava kind of thing, and some of us, so it triggers certain responses in the body, right? And then, okay, this incident is past, you go home, you're probably shaking, shivering, okay. Sometimes what happens is in a month or so the body kind of has a way to discharge it on its own, if we're resourced, etc., or if there's nothing, depends on the body. Sometimes it doesn't. So what happens the next time you go is you're stood at the same light and it turns green and you're turning. From your peripheral vision you see something red. What happens in the body? So the body is reacting as if the danger is there. So the steam, the sweating, the tingly hands, the tingly feet, and the hard slamming of brakes. Okay, then once the safety, you come to a stop, you look around, it's probably a lady in like a red salwar or something. So you see how this is what happens to the body, right? So when we have these triggers, they are to keep us safe, but what happens is it's a crude pattern matching. Anything that looks, smells, feels like something that happened in the past, I'm going to be scared. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, say you had a traumatic birth and there was a surgeon with a big dadi and it was traumatic and we didn't resolve it. Might be that the next time you see anybody in a beard in a medical setting, it might trigger it in the body, right? Because at that point you're rational. So this is trauma and this is triggers. Yeah. So I mean, we were talking about telltale signs of trauma. These vivid flashbacks, right? Anything can just take you. Smells, for example, is very powerful, right? there are certain smells that can take you to very pleasant fond memories or very traumatic memories
Yeah.
also. What about sounds, auditory sounds? Okay. So, like if you've been on the receiving end of religious trauma, religious abuse, that chanting can actually be a trigger, right?
Yeah.
Or if you had a traumatic medical setting experience, that smell of Dettol when you walk into the
Yeah.
clinic
I've heard
can be
somebody telling me this. Yeah.
completely triggering. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've had it when I see some kind of scenes in the TV or something, and it might create a trigger towards my childhood family patterns, which were that happened, and it has taken me, and then um, even though sometimes I've lived in Chennai for almost 27 years, and then I moved to Bangalore. So when I moved to Bangalore, I was very very scared, because for me Bangalore was very very new. But 6 years down the line, now if you tell me if you want me to go to my old house and stay, I said no, I can't, because I'm scared of going into that space where there has been a lot of uh, trauma of war and trauma of conversations of pain and hurt and fight. And I think so if anybody suddenly talks about their childhood homes or childhood memories, even if they are talking about something positive, it triggers a very negative aspect for me.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's a good example. Movies and TV and things can be
Yeah.
quite triggering. For example, I was okay. So this is I watched The Great Indian Kitchen 2 or 3 days ago, and
Yeah, saw your
okay,
post. Please go
yeah.
and read, all of you, please go and read her post, how she has written about smashing patriarchy in
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. So I was watching The Great Indian Kitchen, and sorry, give me a minute. Hmm.
Thank you, Subha. Thank
There
you.
was a particular scene where I mean the whole thing was pretty triggering, right? But I was able to differentiate and stay in my body, and but there was one particular scene that I didn't know was that triggering at that time. I kind of
Okay.
watched it and went to sleep. This was the one about the foreplay where she says that it's
Yeah.
she wants foreplay, and then he slut shames her, and
Yeah.
you know uh, yeah, spoiler alert, anybody who hasn't seen it, please go to Prime and watch it. um, I didn't, I kind of saw it, and then it was fine, the movie was done, whatever. But the next day I woke up with, I had woken up feeling very my bucket was like this small that day, the next day. And I'm going through the daily life, and I'm trying to figure out why I was so, what had happened, and this was it, right? So the thing is, movies and media, things that you see can actually be quite triggering,
Yeah.
in terms of and the whole movie, there's lots in there that I think can be a trigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful movie. It's not gory at all. Somebody is saying that I'm waiting. I have no guts to watch it, actually. It's not. Okay. Yeah. I mean, follow your instinct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. What I'm saying is, it's not the thing. The reason I think that movie worked was because it was not overt at all. It was very everyday. Nobody raises their voice ever in that movie, right? There is no big dramatic uh, you know, portrayal of, it's not like Pavakadegal, for example.
And it
Who,
was it was the real
hey, can you give
uh
me a second? 1 second.
yeah. Yeah. So it was, the movie is totally the real
I'm going
Indian
to,
kitchen.
can I, so sorry. Give me a minute. I'm going to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. Please.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, so we're just talking about triggers and trauma, and then we are also realizing that we somewhere we have little things that are stored in our bodies, and we're going to touch on various topics like how childhood trauma and adolescent trauma, if it is not worked upon, how does it show on our relationships, and why communication and trauma, how are they connected, and there are a lot of other questions, interesting questions that people have asked. I'll be asking everything. So stay in. Anything that you want to share? Yeah. பார்க்கணும் ஆசையா இருக்கு, but I'm like, no, it's not good for you. It's not like that. It's not good for you and all. Subha, it is very good. You can just see it in a very, very general perspective. Maybe in some ways it can be triggering. Have your boundary set up. If you want to pause some minute, pause it, go back, do your work, and then come back and see. Maybe you don't have to see it in full stretch. And I think the first 20 minutes, if I have watched it, but I've yet to finish my writing on the post. But the first 20 minutes, right, it goes really slow. And I feel the director has achieved the intent and the purpose, because that's how a woman's life on a day-to-day basis is when she is within her four walls. Slow, mundane, regular job, nothing interesting. And if the audience feels like, yeah, I get it, what you're trying to sell, move on to the next scene. If somebody is feeling that way, yes, even though you get the movie, you don't get what is actually happening in a woman's life on a day-to-day basis. So that is something I really liked it, that more than patience, it's more about the women's life as such. Yeah, she's back. She's back. Yeah, just
Hi.
hi. Hope both of them are fine now.
They're okay.
Sibling
Yeah,
fight?
இல்ல தூக்கத்திலேருந்து எழுந்திருக்கா. She went to sleep quite early. She woke up and there was nobody in the room, so she got a bit.
Acho.
So I
Put her back. All done.
given her to husband and
Okay.
yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, some women felt bored watching it. That's how numb we've become. Amma.
Yeah.
That's like Niels is saying. It's sort of mind-numbingly painful, especially the sounds of that பாத்திரம் தேய்க்கிறது அந்த இது பண்றது.
அவ்வளவுதான் மியூசிக்கே அதுல.
Repetitive. It is, oh my god, I think, it's what a powerful way to make a point, right?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be, it's not about honor killings. It's not that பாவ கதைகள். It's not gory.
யதார்த்தமான ஒரு லைஃப் எப்படின்னா அது அப்படி, like when we were watching at home, after like 15 minutes my husband was like, டைரக்டர் சார் புரிஞ்சிச்சு நீங்க என்ன சொல்லணும்னு நினைக்கிறீங்க அப்படின்னு. நான் சொன்னேன், இல்ல உனக்கு இரிட்டேட் ஆறனா அப்ப யோசிச்சு பாரு, எவ்ரிடே எங்களுக்கு லைஃப் இப்படிதான் இருக்கும். எவ்ரி ஹவுஸ் woman who's at home and trying to do life is like this. So you can't stand 20 minutes of patience of seeing the same thing and again. We are doing it for generations after generation, right? So that's a very, very strong point. And problem is, if there is no drama, if there is no politics, if there is no gossip, are we not okay with all those things? It feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a very strong point. There's so much to notice, right? About yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a good.
Yeah, so that is a very, very.
The next morning was I went through half a day before I realized what the trigger was, which was that I had that movie and that scene was really triggering for me. So edhuk solla varena, then it can take your, like, so we can have bodily reactions. So idudha, so எனக்கு how do I know that I'm carrying trauma is there are so many things that you can say about that, right? So one is, I mean, generally you can say sleeplessness, you can say inability to want to show up for life fully, feeling like you cannot inhabit or expand into life fully, or detached or dissociated or only half there half here mari, or it felt, an inability to emote, inability to make all of that, but relationships can feel very fraught. And one of the telltale signs of this complex trauma is that competing need to attach, as well as then it triggers defensiveness, right? So there is it's like driving a car with one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator. That's extraordinary on the body, right? So that is some of the signs. What else? I mean, I think dissociation is a big part, or having anger episodes, panic attack, rage episodes, triggered by having small children, and in reaction to your children. A lot of people have not anger but rage, வெறித்தனமா, லைக் ஒரு போட்டு உன்னை இன்னைக்கு சாவடிச்சிடணும்ன்ற அளவுக்கு ஒரு கோவம். So that is an example. Imagining that all of this will end, which is different from suicidal ideation. That's like this sort of collapse response. And sort of
Is it being clingy and needy?
Could be. It depends on what's underneath it. But yes, I mean, the anxiety, depression, all of these can also be comorbid with trauma, right? So anxious attachment. Like, so all of this is a big part of attachment, and what attachment what we bring in our bodies as attachment, right? And it also has an impact on relationships, right? So when one nervous system.
I'm coming to that. So there is a question that a lot of people ask. This was the same question from a lot of people. So how does my childhood trauma or adolescent trauma show up in my adulthood relationships, that is my marriage or with my children? How does it show up, my trauma? Even though I'm consciously trying to be good to my partner, do good to my, healthy to my children and everything, but somewhere is it showing up? That's the question.
So yes, I want to say, Niels is saying self-harm, self-sabotage. Yes. So tendency, self-harm, addictive behaviors, that's a telltale sign of trauma, right? Suicidal
food addiction. We tend to be suddenly
all kinds of addiction,
only in some pattern, only in some phase of life we'll be so into food, like you're constantly eating, food is the only source of relaxation types. You actually don't eat because you're hungry, you eat beyond that, right?
There is a lot to say about eating and trauma. There is we can talk about it all day, but the way we approach food and the way we approach eating has a lot to do with our attachment systems, our defense systems, our sensory systems, trauma, right? Yes, there is a lot of correlation between that. Yes. So to your question about how does it reflect, it reflects on every part of your life. So and depends, this early attachment, not just attachment, some of those bodily patterns that we carry. See, we think of attachment as just attachment with the romantic partner or attachment with your mother. It's not that, because it's your basic body scaffold. Okay, so it sets the scene for how you show up for everything. Okay, so like, how do you attach with your friends? How do you attach with your children? How do you attach? How do you show up at work? How do you show up for money? How do you attach with this society, right? So the community, the religion, the whatever group that you're a part of, right? All of those things are underpinned by these patterns. Okay, so it's pervasive, right? And how you show up for food, etc. So it's not that it is selectively, it can show up in some things, but what we do is sometimes we adapt, right? So say you had a very anxious, whatever style or whatever you bring, you might be able to, for example, you had to go to work and make money. You might develop an adaptive style to function. Yes, but sometimes what happens is, over a period of time, it becomes very maladaptive, right? So that the load of having to do that is also Yeah, so we kind of mask it temporarily. We put a band-aid on it and hope it goes away. And then sometimes it does, sometimes it festers underneath and becomes this really pus-filled, raw thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, am I giving my trauma to my children? Does my trauma get passed on to my children? That's another question.
We do. We might. Let's see. Okay, so um, a big part of what we carry as attachment systems, we have inherited from either parent, sometimes both.
Mm.
Okay. However, as we pass along intergenerational trauma, so now I can, with a lot of what's in my body, now I can see what my mother was and what my grandma was also, right?
Mm.
So it is trauma can and is intergenerational, especially when it's this systemic and all of this collective chronic, over a period of time trauma. But just as we pass on the trauma to our children, we also pass along our resilience,
Mm.
the healing. So remember how I talked about there's triggers, but then there's glimmers,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. Just as we pass this on, we're also passing
How to
our
heal it.
resilience to our children, right? So it
Mm.
is not what I want everybody to take away is that it's as we're doing this, we're also doing that. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, if you grow up where there was trauma, but there were one or two things where the parent was a cycle breaker, then you're passing on that cycle breaking stuff also to your children, right?
Mm.
Then
Yeah.
they don't have to heal from those things because you dealt with it in your generation. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yes, we do pass on trauma, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, but I think I want everybody that's listening to this to hold ourselves with a lot of tenderness because this work is big, profound. It's not that you just கடையில போய் கரிகா வாங்குற மாதிரி இல்ல இது.
Correct.
Because and when you heal all those before you and all those after you, right? So the work that you might want to embark on or you're thinking of embarking on is long and hard, but you know what, it's very rewarding as well, right? So I do want anybody that's listening to it not, I mean, this is not to guilt or shame or put the blame
Yeah.
on the others. Usually
Yeah.
that's what happens in the society. This is not about that at all. Okay,
No.
because that was not yours to do, right? Like for you to be an attuned or whatever mother, you need support systems to be able to do that, right? Somebody needs to hold you so you can hold the baby, right? So that is very important to understand for anybody who's listening to this. And I'm going to tell you the second thing, which is that neuroplasticity, we can heal at any age. Okay, so the nervous system is plastic, it's very malleable. Okay, so
Yeah.
healing is when we do this work, when our nervous systems are organizing, we show up different. Our nervous systems are co-regulating with our children, right? So they are going, and everybody around us, for example, right, do the work for you. But when you do the work, there is a ripple effect
But
of
okay.
you showing up differently for the people in your life. Okay, so I don't want the takeaway to be, oh my god, I'm such a terrible person. That's not the
Yeah.
goal of this. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that neuroplasticity part of it, because there was one person who was 47 and she pinged me and said that I think I'm carrying trauma. I don't know, can I recover out of this? I'm already 47. So if you are listening, if you are that person, she's here to help you. You can go and connect with her. She does one-to-one consultations as well, and she also have group therapies, group modalities also. So she has specific programs only designed for this, for all of us. So I think please make the best use of that, because there are a lot of people who ping me and said, I'm worried for my age, and
Yeah.
now we have got the answer. Age is not an issue for us. It's just,
No,
I
it's
think,
not.
I think the
Yeah.
intention that I need to take that step to heal out of this, I think that itself is enough for you to go and seek a therapist.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like they say, seeking a therapist, right, and going and turning up to the session is therapy in itself, right? Like that's the first step.
Yeah.
Taking that first step and actually reaching out, actually, having the courage to make that first appointment and
Yeah.
showing up to that session is therapy in itself, right? Because it
Yeah.
requires, and you did, and most, they did, and there is a journey of how people come into that also.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you need to give yourselves a lot of credit for that, right? Like you're probably listening to this live, consuming this information.
Yeah.
That in itself shows that there is intention to heal, right? And then I also think the body is ready for certain things at certain points, right? So this is not something you can just say this is there, whatever, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
important for us people to understand that it's there and that's the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
But there's also that for people to reach out and seek it, there needs to be a level of safety, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As in, what do you say? It's not just about like a lot of people ask me. So how long does therapy take? How many sittings? The problem is it differs with individual. It differs with how many layers of work that we need to do. So when people come and ask me, can you heal me in 3 weeks or 4 weeks? The problem is I can't give them guarantee. It depends. I can be a person who can moderate you, support you throughout your life. The problem is healing takes its own course of time, and sometimes you also don't know how long it will take as a person when you're going through. You might think that okay, this weekend I'll be fine, but you don't know what gets triggered, and then that week's session, you don't know what we were supposed to discuss goes off in something else. So I think
Yeah.
this is a very common thought because you spoke that coming and showing up in itself is one of the biggest things. Yes. At the same time, how long is a question that you need to, the body is going to give us an answer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I also get that question, and it would make sense why it's not like எனக்கு இப்ப தலை வலிச்சது நான் மாத்திரை சாப்பிட்டேன் இது அந்த மாதிரி கிடையாது, right? So it's not
Correct.
like I have a headache, I'm going to pop a pill and I'll be okay. It's not like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think the body will drive it. It's like, so the body will drive it,
Yeah.
and the therapist, my work is to catch that, right, and
Yeah.
not overwhelm the body, because when you do that you undo all the good work that you've been doing. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you can listen to the body space, it will pace. So sometimes I work with clients for 2-3 months, then they take a break for 3 to 6 months and then come back. Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's what the body wants to do. And then when they come back, sometimes there's a very deep layer that feels ready
Breathe
to,
straight.
to be shown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, let your body be the driver, right? It'll tell you
Yeah.
what
Let the
it
body be.
needs to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the question was, I feel so difficult to communicate with others or in a group. Is it related to my trauma? Can be, cannot be.
Uh, can be, maybe. We maybe. Yeah. So I would want to find out
So there is
what.
something more we need to have a conversation
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
I'm curious about um what happens before what happened. Yeah. I think we need to ask more questions and get
yeah,
curious about it. Yeah.
there's no one answer to it, right? So I
Yeah.
think more of before and after questions we need to ask, and then maybe. So if you're somebody who's like who, if you had question and if you're answering, so maybe consult the therapist and consult her, consult me, anybody, because I think this needs a little more in-depth question answer sessions to reveal ourselves more. Okay. I'm having a problem in sexual intercourse. Is it related to my trauma? Can it be related to my trauma?
Yeah, I have, yes, quite likely that could be that. Like I have a whole practice where I see women for
Vaginous menstruation.
sex related issues. Yeah, mostly vaginismus. You know, yeah, um, yeah, just like food. Okay, we can talk about this all day about sex and attachment, sex and
Yeah.
trauma, sex
Yeah.
and in body, right? Like, so what happens in our bodies? And again, you have to situate it in the context of the patriarchy in which these bodies grow. I'm guessing this is a woman. You have to put it, this is unmistakable. You can't, that's why I'm saying, right? All of this work is very cultural and hyper cultural, right? You have to name that this body, this woman's body, has been situated in a culture which is extraordinarily preoccupied with her virginity, extraordinarily preoccupied with, nothing going anywhere near her vagina, right?
Yeah.
Sending messages of shame, sending messages of religious, consequences, etc. Right? That the fact that that has a huge impact on intercourse, right? Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because the women are expected to, women are scared, right? A lot of women are very scared when to think about, yeah. So that, yeah, sexual intercourse could be anything, right? It could be, yeah, there's so many aspects to
Yeah.
difficulties with
Yeah.
sex. Yes, it could well be trauma.
Yeah. And yeah, sometimes I've had a client who says that she has intercourse. There's no issue in having the intercourse, but the fear remains.
Hmm.
It can be
Yeah.
otherwise. It's yeah. It's not just about the action. It's more about the fear that is surrounded by it.
Yeah, yeah. And what happens during, before, and after? Yeah.
Yeah, during, before, and after.
Yeah.
So that also may be related to trauma, or maybe something else that's connected to
Yes.
it, or any abuse somebody has gone through in certain
Yes.
phases
That's
of
why.
life.
Yeah. So this is why I was. You have to situate it in the systemic context where 1 in 2 women in India have experienced some form of unwanted, um, sexual advances, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
actual touch, all the way in the spectrum, right? So you would expect that when women come to you for therapy, there is a high likelihood that there has been some kind of unwanted boundary violations that the body could have experienced at some point, right? I'm not saying it like all, it's a spectrum, right? Anything
Yeah.
that the body registers as threat is trauma, right? So we shouldn't be qualifying that at all, but I'm just saying that there is a high likelihood of where something like that happened. Many cases where it has happened with a close family member, a cousin, teacher, uncle, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there is that aspect. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And and uh, it's not always some random person. It's also sometimes much within the close social circle
Yeah,
that this
yeah.
kind of fear happens.
Yes, and the sad story is none of these women said. I mean, most of these, they were most times the story is that I've not told my parents this. I didn't say it to them.
Yeah.
Then I haven't shared it with them till date. Is the
Yeah.
story. It's
Yeah.
because I was scared that they're not going to, and that's a really sad thing to hear because, hey, we've failed as parents, right? Like when you think about what you want to do,
Yeah.
you want to protect your child, you want to create a space where the child feels safe enough to come and tell you things, right? And so there is,
Yeah.
it's a very sad thing.
Yeah, yeah. So many times I see when women come for therapy and they say, "Oh, I haven't told it to my partner. I haven't told to my in-laws. I haven't told." So there is still, even after marriage, they are mothers, and then still somewhere we hold on to the thing that no, I haven't told. It's not. It's still a secret.
Yeah, like we discussed, the marriage where there is the couple and then there is space and then there's everybody else. Then there's another kind of
Yeah,
marriage where the couple is, one is here, one is there, and there are 6 people inside it.
yeah,
So that's a very crowded marriage, right? So,
yeah,
so yeah, that comes, it
yeah,
is a completely different context to marriage or intimacy, right? Not
yeah,
saying one is, like I said, I think some marriages are built on this inherent belief that it is not for your individual pleasure or happiness or intimacy or anything like that, but it is in service of continuation of that system, that institution. So it is built for what they call endurance, right? So the idea is that it can take many things and it will survive, and then some, which is which has become quite problematic, because then it ends up being that it's unfairly, I mean, the idea of continuance is unfairly placed on mostly the woman.
Yeah. And somewhere they seek therapists, and then it also feels that I want to be in this relationship. I can't give up on this relationship. This relationship has been everything for me. So it is like that, finding that middle ground gets so difficult for the women, where she feels safe and she feels secured and she feels valued, and also come out of all these things.
Yeah, that's the boundary work bit, right? That's the boundary work.
Yeah.
This is why
Yeah.
it's so crucial to do the boundary work. And so this thing, what you describe, is what we do in Brown Bodies and Boundaries. So the next session's in June. This is
Yeah.
this again is you want to explore it in the body, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this idea that either I can exist or you can exist, but we can't exist together at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one person has asked, is my divorce process right now can be a trauma or a trigger in the future if I don't go to a therapist?
Not necessarily. I think it can also be that glimmer, the resource, right? The
Yeah.
find the breaking free, right? So I think it depends on how, what your journey has been into that process itself, right? And it depends on how messy or not messy it is. There is some beautiful end of, like, what, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow that said, we've after she broke up with Chris Martin, she said, this term became a rage then, like she said, conscious uncoupling.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of couples now use it. Now, Bill and Melinda Gates have split up
Billion
after
million.
10
Yeah.
years. Oh my God, right? And then, yeah.
Yeah.
Unconscious, conscious
Yes,
uncoupling can
uncoupling.
be very, very healthy, for
Healing.
example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
healing for both, right?
Yeah.
Then you kind of step into that. If you have children, there's the co-parenting discussion,
Co-parenting.
etc. So
Yeah.
it, no, not all divorces can need to be traumatic. Some can be pretty healing, because for both, right? And
Yeah.
that's, so I don't know. It just depends on what kind of divorce it is. Yeah.
And so somebody who has a good, as in a very healthy birthing process, the baby is healthy, she's healthy, she had a very nice situation when it comes to birthing process, everything was fine. Still, she's having postpartum issues. She's not able to focus on the baby. She's not able to focus on her. So she's having anxiety. So it can be, is it related to her past trauma that has happened during her college days or child? Can it be connected? Is one question.
Yeah, sometimes it can. And also, look, so the thing is, what our body stores is, it's not the event itself, right? It's how the body perceived it. Like I was telling you about that red truck and that red
Truck.
sari, right? And remember, I told you about this dadi, which,
Dadi which.
and then the next time you see somebody like that who's in a position of power, male, in a medical setting, the body is like, so there is, it's not, and this is not to minimize or gaslight the lived experiences, right? We don't, the point is that we stay with what's present in the body, right? And is it possible? I mean, why am I depressed even though I had a great birth and good support? So many reasons, right? So many things can come up when we become mothers, right? There's so much more that could be going on, which could be causing this. There's also hormonal stuff. There is that aspect of, it depends on how much postpartum you are, etc. So I don't know. We'd have to, explore that.
Yeah. So yeah, why
Lack of,
I'm asking, yeah, it needs
breastfeed
little more
tissue.
conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs more of one-to-one consultation type. So I think more of connecting with her on a more one-to-one basis might give you more answers to your questions. So please to connect. So now
Okay.
we've tried to talk
There's
about
somebody's
everything.
asking, is it possible to tune ourselves from making an event into a trauma? Um, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right? So the trauma is not necessarily always in the event itself. It's how our body
Experience also, right?
experiences it. Yeah. How, what we experience and how and why, right? So the
Yeah.
same event can be very traumatic for one person and may not affect the other person at all.
Yeah.
Okay. It also depends on what our nervous systems are set at when we come into the event,
Hmm.
right? And it also, sometimes people with empaths, like people who can deeply empathize with people in caregiving professions, who have a very vivid sense of imagination, the sense that if you're telling me a story, I can actually imagine you there with,
Yeah.
you know,
Visualize.
get into your story, right? And so most of us turn out to be in caregiving professions. Then it's vicarious trauma. So even though you have not experienced it, it's as if your body has experienced it, right? So then you might be carrying trauma. So it depends on so many other things. To your question about, is it possible to tune ourselves from making an event and try? Yes, by staying in our bodies, by doing this boundary work, right? Because
Yeah.
then you could differentiate that. Then the other thing is kind of slowing down,
Slowing down.
right? So, but again, all of these are, we're talking about this, right? When the triggers come, your thinking brain goes offline. Then you're all animal instinct, right? That rage. It's the same thing with parenting. Rage, like I told you, the difference between anger and rage. A lot of us get, there are situations that will trigger like rage, right? And that's something very, very early, like pre-verbal rage. And then it's a split second and you've reacted, and potentially right after that, you're guilting, shaming, going into that shame spiral, right? But it's there, right? So when I say slow down, it's not like, oh, asking you to consciously do it. I'm saying that when you do the work in the body,
Boundary.
your nervous
Yeah.
system has a way to slow it down. Right? Yeah, it's not a cognitive thing. Not always.
Okay. So, so now that we know, okay, somewhere some of us carry trauma, and yet we tend to deny it. Why do you think we deny it?
Because we need to survive, right? And denial, and because it's too overwhelming for us to look at it. It is. Many of us spend years denying it, not being able to look at it in the eye, because it's too much, right? And when our nervous systems get overwhelmed, we do need to fragment as a
Yeah.
way to survive. We do
Yeah.
need to dissociate. We do need to not look at it, because otherwise, and it has been a powerful coping mechanism. But then when it gets to the point where it gets toxic, you pay attention to, or when there is small glimmers of safety in a place where it feels like, now I could do the work, then you might be able to see it. Sometimes you'll see it and then look away, see it and then look away, and then then you come into it, etc., right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it is our body's way of keeping us safe, right, in that sense. But
Yes.
it's affecting us. That's the point, right? So this is why the work needs to happen. So either with the external stimulus or internal stimulus, we come into that work when we're ready, when there's either enough safety or the threat is so big that we have to look at it.
Yeah. So should I so when should I go for a therapy? So how do I know that my body is ready?
No, not therapy itself. I'm saying that when you're saying that there are certain, some people look at it or denying it, I was talking about that. Or to deal with certain incidences. So that was what I was saying about the body being ready, not for
Yes.
therapy itself, right? Like, I would say that just like you go get your regular dental exams, just
Yeah.
like you go your annual checkups, it is a good idea to see a therapist once in a while.
Yes.
So I don't think there needs to be any precondition for us to go to a therapist. I think it should be very normal for us to,
Yeah.
seek professional help. And there's no shame or taboo in it.
Yes.
தலை வலிச்சா மாத்திரை சாப்பிட மாட்டோமா? That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You go to the doctor. I mean, தடிக்க விழுந்தா டாக்டர்ஸ் போறோம்ல, இல்ல? அந்த
Yeah.
மாதிரி, like I think we should, just like you would go for regular checkups, it's a good idea for everybody to seek and access a therapist.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I think you, me, and so many people are just working towards this, that someday in India, we can just ring somebody and say, hey, I want to, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxiety, I just need to consult a therapist, and we get that appointment immediately. Like, it has to
Yeah,
be that, like, if my child is coming and telling him, I'm feeling depressed, I'll be like, okay, I'll take to a therapist. That should be my first instant reaction, rather than telling her that, okay, go take a break or go sleep for some time, and tomorrow you're going to be fine.
ஒண்ணும் இல்ல.
எல்லாம் சரியாயிடும்.
நாங்கெல்லாம் அனுபவிக்கலையா? இதென்ன
ஆ
புதுசா?
ஆ
Just power through it like I did. Deny it. You have to power through it. You have to use the conscious brain to override what your body is telling you. And look
yeah
at what it did to that generation of women, right? They're one of the unhealthiest generations we've had because of this, right? Because there is a big impact to not listening to your body. It turns into IBS, it turns into constipation, it turns into gut issues, it turns into kidney failures, liver, all of
cancer.
this, right? Cancer, yeah. So there is a lot of connection between trauma and chronic illnesses.
Yes.
Okay, fatigue, chronic fatigue, for example, right? There are so many, heart conditions, diabetes, for example. Oh my God, the chronic production of cortisol and what that does to your endocrine pituitary axis. Okay, so point is, that's the thing, right? We trauma is connected to all of these, right?
Yeah. 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 I think
Yeah, opening up makes us
uh
vulnerable. So it is difficult to seek I get it, completely get it.
yeah
You know what? I see clients who come to me after, and you probably have the same. Come to me after 2 or 3 or 4 therapists who have all consistently denied, gaslit, shamed, talked down
yeah
to women because the
yeah
therapists themselves are a product of the patriarchal setup, which they've internalized and not worked on before they became
yeah
therapists, right? So
yeah
it's doubly traumatizing because
yeah
it's so difficult and vulnerable for women to seek help. So I applaud any of you that have ever sought therapy. Hats off to you. I applaud you. It takes so much courage to actually do that, right? And then to be told that you're wrong, and to be minimized and gaslit and shamed,
yeah
judged, is further, I mean, that is doubly traumatizing. And then you kind of like, oh my God, where does that leave me? What's wrong with me, right? So
yeah
I
yeah
get it. I completely get it. Yes, it is vulnerable, right? Yeah.
yeah yeah
It's a very,
even today I had a client where she said that I've seen 4 5 therapists, and everyone says that in marriage you have to make compromises, in marriage you need to adjust, and this is a statement that's coming from all the therapists. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, don't worry, okay, you just need to, I'm just proud that you are okay with, after 5 therapists you're okay to seek the 6th therapist to come and
how
see.
great. Yes, yeah. And
Isn't it?
that's, it's patriarchy is everywhere, right? Like women with vaginismus get told to go see a doctor, and then they have to endure very painful, even more painful internal exams before being
Yeah,
talked down to say that, one, it's all in your head, adjust paniko, cooperate paniko.
yeah,
If you don't do that, your husband will leave you.
yeah,
These are the things that doctors and nurses routinely tell women,
yeah.
right? So there is patriarchy in medicine because the bodies that are clinical are not just clinical, they are a product of the same
Product
patriarchal
6.
misogynistic setup that routinely does harm to women, right? So it's
Yeah,
not we can't talk about mental health without talking about the system. We cannot
yes,
talk about birth without talking that birth is situated in
Yeah.
the context of the system, right? That's why it's
Yeah.
so important for us to understand the systemic trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I also had somebody who told me that the language that was used inside her birthing space, that created a lot of, everything was comfortable, but the language, the
Yes,
words, that echoes in her mind, it seems.
yeah,
And
it's very impacted. Yeah.
post her pregnancy, she's not able to have intercourse with her partner because of those kind of words that were used.
Yes, yes,
And she had to seek therapist. So imagine what and all it can lead to. We
yes,
just like in on the go, we just comment on somebody or tell somebody anything, or like whatever it is, I would just consider like some kind of loose talk, even if it is mockery. For you it might be mockery, but what, how is it consumed, how is it connected to the other person?
yes. Yeah, we're routinely causing a lot of harm to birthing people in the birth room because of our internalized, how broken the system is, but also that we refuse to take accountability for that part, right? So as
Yeah.
care providers, yeah,
Yeah, I think that is a place that a lot of changes is required. Just like how a lot of change is required in the way a family construct and a marriage construct has needs, and how marriage templates needs to be changed in so many ways. I think that's where the journey begins of change. When there is a conversation happening around marriage, and then you talk about the next generation coming out, and then we talk about the birth workspace, right? Like two
yes,
solid spaces where trauma and trigger can exist.
yeah, in
It,
the family, right? All of that
yeah,
is in the family. Yeah,
the family.
yeah, the idea of family, the idea of marriage, the idea of yeah. I mean, fundamentally, I think you can't separate the system from the individual, right? There's no,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So, what do you want to tell our audience? How can they connect with you? How can they?
Uh,
Do you do
yes,
one-to-ones? Do you do group modalities? What do you
yes.
do? What are the
So I
different things that you have on the plate to offer us? We are very selfish people, so tell us what you can offer us.
so I offer one-on-one therapy sessions online. The work is completely online these days, so you can book it. There's a link in my bio, or it's worldruler.com. You could go and book. So this is one-on-one therapy.
Hmm.
And I also offer birth workshops for to help pregnant couples. Something that is has been requested a lot is preconception work. So that is coming up. And then the thing that I do for the group is called Brown Bodies and Boundaries. So a lot of what we discussed, the relational aspects, the attachment, the anxiety about showing up, and so much more, um, is we explore that in our bodies in a group setting. So and actually sometimes my one-on-one therapy clients also go to group, and then the
Yeah.
group things come here because they're complementary, these two things.
Yes.
So it's a 4-week course. It's a month. So the May one is in progress,
Yeah.
and then the June one has opened up now. So if it's a good way for you to start exploring or dipping your toes in some of these. So yeah, as it relates to trauma, those are the two things. It's one-on-one, and then this the brown bodies. A lot of my one-on-one work again is about I see a wide variety. I only see women, and generally, I've started seeing some pre-relationship women, and then mostly it's about the trauma in the perinatal journey. But yeah, yes, and so I also see single women in my yeah. I see a wide. It's women mostly. That
Yeah.
mostly all of it is women. And yeah, so that's kind of what I do. So if you want to explore any of these, you can all of it is like there's a link in my bio. So yeah,
She's
that's
always
right.
there for you. She'll DM, and she's gonna reply you in 24 hours. And
I try
but
to, yeah.
if she's working with a mother who's going to birth, she'll never touch her Instagram. That is also a probability. So if she's not replying, that means there is a reason why she's not replying, and she's gonna get back to you.
Yeah, yeah. And so
So
I support births as a birth doula. And then I also
yeah.
offer preparation for couples. And then, yeah, there's the trauma work.
So
Okay. All
so
right.
so thank you. கால் ஷீட் கொடுத்ததுக்கு, டைம் கொடுத்ததுக்கு, உங்க நாலேஜ் கொடுத்ததுக்கு, எல்லாத்துக்குமே.
It's
You
always a
are
pleasure.
gonna go. I don't know why you've come here all the way leaving UK and all, but I know you've come here for us. I don't know the other reasons. What universe is telling you, I don't know. But I think you've come here, and it's gonna be a huge, long, bumpy ride for you, but it's gonna be worth it. அது மட்டும் நான்
Yeah,
வந்து
yeah. I
I
don't know.
will
Here, அது
stamp
வந்து
it and say,
that's a story for another day. Why we
yeah.
came back and what I'm doing now.
I
But
told you, no, I will interview. I will be the person who's going to interview that, and it is going to happen very soon.
it's been a very so these 3 years have been very
See, somebody has told. I'm glad she's in India. I'm
yeah,
telling you. I'm telling
yeah,
you. I'm
yeah.
waiting.
I
I'm
think I
waiting
was
when you're going to write a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Books should be on your list. I'm really telling. I don't know what you're waiting for, but then sooner
Yeah.
or later, start off the prep work. And all these videos are your prep work. And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are the audience who's going to buy you. We will be the first one to be there on the launch. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's been
book is
that's
something. Book
and
is
stuff.
something from the Indian context is definitely need of now, because we don't get all these kinds of knowledge that is written and preserved in books, because it's not just for us, it's for the upcoming generations as well. So what happens tomorrow? Instagram is not there, no IGTV. What happens? I feel the books are there for the children who are going to come up and read. So in that sense, you should be thinking strongly on writing a book.
Yes.
Yes. So all the best. All the best for everything that you do, and may a
Yeah,
lot
and
of
keep up the
people.
great work. Ila does a lot of marriage and
Yeah.
relational counseling. She does group workshops as well, and she does individual
One-to-one.
stuff
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, so couples. Like I said, it's like a relationship check. Car எடுத்துன்னு போய் service விட மாட்டோமா? It's like 6 months, you take your car, get it serviced. It's the same thing with your marriage,
Yeah.
right? It's the same thing. Just book it, right? It's like having that test yearly annual checkup இருக்குல்ல அந்த மாதிரி தான் அது. Yeah. That can save a
Yeah.
lot of heartbreak down the line. And it's right. So
Yeah.
we should normalize couples counseling as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Sangitaka. Thank you so much for your time. 11 in the
All
night.
the
Thank you
best.
for making time. And all the best for whatever you've done. You're doing amazing work, and we would want to see more of work of you coming out. It has to spread with words, with actions, and may a lot of people get healed through your words. I am saying words like green revolution, white revolution மாதிரி words ஆல revolution கொண்டு வரவங்க வந்து நீங்க தான். I have been telling this to my whole family. I've made them shown your videos also, even though they don't accept to your points and all வந்து கிடையாது. So I've like, for me it is more of that perspective, because வார்த்தையால ஒருத்தவங்களோட thought process மாத்த முடியும்னா that is something that I've absorbed from you over the year of
Thank
over
you
the
so
1+
much. And thank you
years
so
that
much for the support. There'll be, I think there was up to like September, October, something. There was 1 month where I didn't post at all. Like I was just, caught up. But Ila used to ping me and saying, "Why are you silent? We want more stuff from you." And it was really encouraging. Like it got me back there, right? Like so to kind of do it. So thank you so much for that.
Always. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here at this time. Thank you for bringing the place and making this place safe and for all of us. So thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Tata. Take care.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.